And there's one thing that I think is very important that we should talk about is we talked a little bit about humility. Would you go into more detail of what exactly humility is?
To me, humility usually gets mixed in with like meekness. So people think, oh, I'm just like a puppy, and I'm just like, yes, that's humble. Not really. To me, it's like being open and taking in input that you normally wouldn't take. I mean, how many times have we approached clients that we have in our software business, and they say, I ask them, well, how do you do it? I truly want to know, and they explain it, and I'm like, well, why do you do it that way? And I'm not trying to be condescending or judgmental. I truly don't understand the reason why they're doing it the way they're doing it. And I'm trying to learn. I mean, we got in business together in an industry that I knew nothing about. I didn't even know that cowboys still rode horses at the time. I didn't know it was a real thing. So now I'm asking you 1,000 questions. That to me is true humility. You're hungry, you're exploring, you're learning, and you're saying, I don't know everything. And to me, that's true wisdom. And honestly, when it comes down to it, I know how to execute the things I do know, and I know what I don't know, and I can ask those questions from other people.
And I think that also leads in to another topic, but the people that either lack humility or are struggling with it, what is that driven from? Well, I think it's driven from pride and ego. When you have pride and ego, we all know that ego is a big, big beast that gets in the way of a lot of people. And having an ego is good, but you have to learn how to control that ego. And I think humility goes right there with it because you walk in to pitch an idea or pitch a business, and then you start getting pushback or feedback. You got to be open to it.
Yeah.
You got to be open to the criticism. You got to be open to the feedback. Doesn't mean you have to agree with it or go along with it. You got to be willing to accept some of it.
Well, how many times have we talk about like we'll prepare for meetings or negotiations, and we'll go through a million questions. What if they say this? What if they do this? What if they do that? And ultimately, we talk through so many scenarios that we walk into the meeting and we're like, all right, let's wing it. Because you don't know what they're going to throw. Hopefully, you've thought of a few things and you have some options in your brain. But ultimately, in the meeting, you have to react to what they say. And you have to be able to, what do they say? Like when you take a punch, you take it and you keep rolling. You roll with the punches is the phrase I'm looking for. And I think a lot of that dynamic flexibility it can make other people successful. Because it's not rigid, they're like, hey, it's got to be this way or I'm out. The brain shuts down. I think you've got to know your stuff and you have to listen to what's being presented in front of you to react appropriately.
Well, and I think that also goes with, confidence, and going into a meeting like you're talking about. And one of the things that, we've been very successful about is going into these meetings and we make the comment about, well, we're just going to wait because we don't know what's coming, but we're prepared for anything that's coming.
Yeah.
For the most part, we've played out the scenarios, we put in the time, the work, and the effort. We've played the chess moves to be empathetic to the other side. We know what's coming.
One time there's a story before we met. I went and pitched a business idea to an investor in New York. And in my mind, I thought this is how it should work. I thought this is how the product should function. And I knew what the users wanted. And I get in there, and there was the guy I'm pitching to had brought in a consultant as well to invest in stuff. And they said, well, I don't do it that way. I don't want everything in one app. I want a business app, and I want an entertainment app, and I want a separate app for news. And I was like, in my brain, I'm like, well, you're an idiot. Like that was the first thought. I'm like, why wouldn't you want it in one? Why do you want to go to multiple places? But that was a failure on my part to take that and try to roll with that. I just was stubborn and saying, well, it's this way. And I afterwards talked to the guy who's like, great job, and gave me the pointer about basically adjusting to what the input is and saying, okay, let me consider that input. How can I integrate that into the solution? And maybe there's a modification to the solution. So I think back about that a lot. Just consider what we've done in negotiations and sales and stuff and how flexible we have to be. Or I'm like, man, I really messed up in that pitch. But you live and you learn, Failed, but you learn something from it.
Well, and that's the biggest part, right? What motivates people, and how do you get better where you gotta fail? And the biggest thing is, how do you handle failure? How do you handle losing? That's a big piece that's really hard to learn, and it's hard to deal with it. A lot of people we've seen go through it, whether it's family members, employees, past, business partners, that past, teammates, whatever it may be. Learning how to lose and learning how to deal with failure and turning that into a strength and a weakness and a tool is a very, very valuable lesson that I think can be applied to anything in life.
Well, and two, just kind of like you said, I'm jumping back a little bit, but it really struck me in our conversations when we talked about what you can control, what you can't control. And when I was thinking about that, I was like, man, every time I've had a discussion or an argument with my wife, and stuff's frustrated me, it's always stuff I can't control. It's her doing something. And I'm like, I'm so focused on that, it's making me mad. Well, you get in a video game or you get in a competition and it's like, well, I can't control this aspect of the game. That's all you focus on, you're never going to succeed. If anything, where I found success was like, okay, I can't control that, but I can do X, Y, and Z that now outnumber that thing that I can't control. So essentially, I've minimized the impact of that thing I can't control on the total outcome. So like you said, maybe it's 95% now of things I can control and 5%. I minimized all the randomness or the weather or whatever it is on the day, the mindset of other players to like 5% of my outcome. So I've increased my odds of success by focusing on the things I can control. I think it's transformative to me. And every time I've had a elevation in competition in any type of sport, it was when I stopped complaining about the thing that I couldn't change and said, well, okay, let's put that aside and let's focus on what I can change. And I don't think a lot of people do that naturally. It's a hard thing to do and realize because it's easy to have a pity party. Nobody wants to row against the river, the flow of the river. They want to join the pity party and complain about everything.
Well, and I think that's the biggest thing is all this goes back to, like we talked about, it's mindset. And if you can sit back and soak and really think about your mindset, whatever it may be, whether it's being a parent, being a spouse, being a leader, a coach, business owner, whatever that may be, the mindset that you're talking about, controlling what we can, what we can't control, I think is all a big part, a big piece of what we learn and experience and how we think and how we do. And that's what we're here to consult and mentor for other